Hello there, thank you for staying with us and welcome to another edition of Channels Beam on Channels Television. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, Boko Haram started out as an Islamist group railing against corrupt officials in northeast Nigeria, but its decade-long insurgency has now devastated the region. The campaign of violence has cost over 27,000 lives, displaced some 2 million people, and spawned an affiliate of the Islamic State group. However, in the turn of events within the last few weeks, over 5,000 terrorists have laid down their arms, repented, and are about to be reintegrated into the society. While some see this as the beginning to the end of the insurgency, others, hard done by the activities of the terrorist group, see the move as an addition of salt to their injuries. And that will be our focus on the program today. Plus, we will be looking at how Nigerians can develop themselves to have better chances of securing opportunities both home and abroad. And joining us to look at today's topic, we have in the studio right here with us Michael Demain. He is a criminologist as well as a public affairs analyst. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you
on the program.
for inviting me.
Of course. We also have joining us via Zoom, Musa Gambo. Thanks as well for joining us on the program today.
Thank you so much, Matthias.
Indeed, you're welcome. Kicks out the conversation for us. I mean, you are the one in, the heat of the whole situation. What is the mood right now? How are people reacting to the fact that members of this terrorist group have repented and are about to be reintegrated into the society?
Well, thank you so much, Victor. The mood in Maiduguri is actually a mixed one since around late last week of August, when the news of surrendering of Boko Haram in mass broke out across the city of Maiduguri. Officially, by Sunday, 29th of August, as when the high-level engagement meeting was held in the government house, presided by His Excellency Governor Zulum, more than 3,000 Boko Haram are actually in custody of people of the Operation Corridor, in addition to 900 who actually surrendered to Cameroonian security agencies. So some people are happy that maybe this is actually the end of the decade-long war, while others are concerned that this may likely be a Trojan horse. I think I have actually read an article widely published in respect to that. But some people are actually thinking that it could actually be a kind of a grand scheme designed, to counter and have another strategy of winning this battle. When you can't win a war from outside, you tend to change strategy and win it from within inside. So people have mixed feeling about this.
All right. I mean, this is not the first time. Sometime last year we had about 600 or so of same terrorists dropping their arms and surrendering, and they were trained on various vocations, tailoring and all of that. How would you say they have reintegrated, or how has the society accepted them since they made that move?
I think we have got to thank for that. The people that have been rehabilitated and reintegrated into the community are actually not much of a problem. We can see in many communities, members of Boko Haram who are repented are being given hands of women to marry, and then the women who actually came out of bushes, who were indoctrinated or who formerly used to be members of Boko Haram, actually are getting husbands to be married off here in the communities. And mostly, especially those who are actually rehabilitated properly, they actually don't have problem with communities, except for 1 and 2, whom we are actually not taking to rehabilitation centers, and then somehow, for some reason, they find their way into the communities. Those have actually been those creating conflicts. And community cannot identify the ones that have been taken to rehabilitation centers and the ones that are not. So they can actually generally just say that these guys have issues, these guys have problems. But they are well connected to the community and they have been living a peaceful life. I think those are the acceptance of the community actually is one of the factors that we think even make it possible for other people in the bushes to start surrendering. However, very few among them have found to have returned back to the bushes, especially females, have returned to the bushes and rejoined with their people. These are part of our fears that if this issue of mass surrender have not been effectively double-checked, the gaps that are present in the system of rehabilitation that allow other people to go back to the bush without being tracked and arrested have not been checked, we may likely have another problem. Because we need to understand why these guys are surrendered in the first place.
All right, let me put that. Just hold on a bit. I'll come back to you again, Musa. But let me come to you in the studio, Michael. I mean, going by everything that he said, I mean, it seems to have been, relatively a good thing, going by the previous surrendering. Yeah. But I mean, what do you make of this situation? I mean,
the process of reintegrating former terrorists or a terrorist into the society has to pass through stages. And you cannot ascertain for sure that these guys are totally okay until they have passed through these stages. And it has to be at least minimum of 3 stages: the stages of training, the stages of retraining and unlearning. Because you know that they have been inculcated into a culture that is extremely different from the general culture of the society. Until you have been able to help them to unlearn the former culture that they say they have repented of, you cannot claim that for sure that these guys are totally out of their act of terrorism. And one thing we have to look at is that even after you have trained them, you have taught them the order that are acceptable in the society, and you have also helped them to unlearn certain skills, you must also be able to put maybe like a tracker or a monitoring gadget on them, so that then when they are released into a particular society, you don't just release them into the general society. You release them into a particular sector of the society, and they are being monitored from time to time until they have been monitored independently without them knowing that you are monitoring them, and yet there's no act of terrorism manifested through them. That is when you can say for sure that, okay, to a good extent, these guys have repented. And another thing we have to look at in the Nigerian society is that when these guys say, oh, we have repented of our evil, we are now back into the larger society, in the first place, we have to ask ourselves question: what are the things, or what are the factors that push them into that act before? Are those acts or are those factors now totally eradicated in the Nigerian society? The Nigerian society itself is a society that has tendency to push people towards the act of terrorism. Because when people want to do certain things and they don't have the opportunity of doing them, I mean positive things now, automatically a negative opinion may come into them, or negative attitude may come into them. So before the Nigerian government can say, oh, these guys, they have repented, we should inculcate them into the larger society, I think they have to think of it twice, and they have to be very sure that they have passed through the stages of de-radicalization. And according to Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State, he has already said it. He said many of the repentant Boko Haram or the repentant terrorists that were inculcated into the system, they ended up becoming a spy in the society, giving back information to the same group they claim they have repented of. So, and Governor Babagana Zulum is a governor of Borno State. I'm sure he has fact and figure, and I'm sure he has a detailed level of information before he can come to that conclusion. So if you can say that, I think in being in that center, before Nigerian government will actually take an opinion or take a stand that, oh, these guys, they have repented and let's inculcate them, I think they need to work with him and to also get certain information from him of the reason he made that particular statement he made by himself.
Well, just speaking about the governor, let's quickly hear from him, because he also made, he said that they are on top of it. But let's just hear from Governor Babagana Zulum, speaking about this reintegration.
Examples of countries that won't go through, that have gone through protracted internal strife, crisis, and have resolved it based on peace building, including Liberia, Sierra Leone, Mozambique, Colombia, Rwanda, among others. And therefore, yes, you are right. This is also another humanitarian crisis, but I think the state government and the federal government have the capacity to contain this situation. President is addressing the emerging humanitarian crisis as relates the ongoing surrender by the insurgents. We are on top of it.
Well, that was the governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Zulum, speaking about the reintegration of the terrorists back into the society. And like you just heard him say, he said they are on top of it. So like you said, they need to liaise with him. And he also just he reiterated the fact that the federal government and the state government have the capacity, to put all of that in place. But hopefully all of the things you made mention of, hopefully it's part of the things that he has in mind as well when this reintegration is going to be happening. But let's just take a quick look at, the atrocities that Boko Haram, has committed since its inception in 2019. So obviously, like I said earlier on in my introduction, I said thousands have been killed, millions displaced, military and police bases attacked, churches bombed, mosques bombed, students abducted, girls forcefully married to insurgents, UN headquarters bombed in Abuja, the flags of Boko Haram hoisted in some parts of the country. Thankfully, the Nigerian army has reclaimed those parts, but that has also consistently put Nigeria high up on terrorism index. And of course, there was the spawning of the Islamic State group, of an affiliate of the Islamic State group, which we have now as the Islamic State West African Province. So these are a few, of the atrocities that Boko Haram has committed. Correct me if I'm wrong, and also add to the list if there is something I missed. But in all of this now, moving forward, with the fact that we're bringing all of these people back into the society, like you said, we can chip them, we can do. How do we fund all of this? And because funding is one of the key things that, would come into all of this. How do you think this can be funded, independently, of course?
Yeah, I think one of the ways it can be funded is also to liaise with international organizations. There are organizations that look at people who have been radicalized before and now they are coming back into the larger society, and, they get funds to support them. And sometimes the funding of them may not actually be in terms of physical cash. They may put them up for a training that will eventually earn them what they really need to become, normal human beings in this society. But one of the things we have to look at is that if Nigerian government is now saying that, okay, we want to get funds to make sure that these people are well inculcated into the larger society, what happened to some of the people that they have displayed? To what extent is Nigerian government looking at these people? Because let me tell you the truth, if these repentant Boko Haram members or the repentant terrorists, if they are inculcated into the larger society and yet nothing is done for the internally displaced people, you may eventually create another room that will build future terrorists for this country. Because scientifically speaking, if you study psychology, you discover that human being is made up of two parts, the eros and the thanatos. The ero part of individual is, encouraged by the environment in which the person grew. The ero part is the pleasure-loving instinct of individual. But the thanato is also built by the environment and individual find himself. That thanato is a tendency towards death. Is ready to die because, and this thing comes as a result of after somebody has thought of it that, okay, what is even the essence of my life? What am I living for? And now many of the internally displaced persons that we have in Nigeria now, we are not looking after them. Sometimes funds, allocated to those people are also diverted to other things. Many of them are living lesser than human as they should. I believe that while the Nigerian government may be looking for funds to make sure that the repentant terrorists are well inculcated into the larger society, we should also look at those people that naturally they were not, they were not criminals, they were doing their own thing, but situation has made them to be living as lesser than human.
All right, let me just hold you for a bit there. Let me go back to Maiduguri where we have Musa Gambo. Musa Gambo, I am aware that there was a stakeholder forum or a stakeholder meeting, as regards this reintegration of repentant Boko Haram terrorists back into the society. What communique was issued, or what was the agreement that they came to at the tail end of that stakeholder meeting?
Well, the stakeholder meeting actually bring together people from the victims who have suffered a lot of atrocities from Boko Haram, and then traditional rulers, and then religious leaders, as well as duty bearers, including the government. That meeting was actually chaired by His Excellency Professor Babagana Umar Zulum. I think the recent video you played is also part of a footage of that meeting. So in the meeting, there was a 16-point communique But major important communique, the people recognize, the effort of the federal and state government in containing the situation, as well as, the ability to provide modern weapons to Nigerian army so that they can, fight this insurgency. But most importantly, the communique also demanded, the reshuffling of the mechanism and double-checking the Operation Safe Corridor ways of reintegration. They also demanded for establishment of world-class rehabilitation center in Maiduguri, being the center of the crisis itself. And then there was also an issue of, an increase advocacy for increase in funding to the state government so that they can have ability to reconstruct, rehabilitate, and rebuild the educational basis that are, educational basis that are being borne by Boko Haram itself. There is also this issue of, putting to sensitization on parents as well as the Boko Haram parent into the system, and then new schools for children to be put into, so that we are not going to have indoctrinated children coming up within our midst, to ensure that these guys are not being released into the community. The communique also demanded for profiling of all the Boko Haram itself, so that we can be able to checkmate, double check these people that are being integrated. And then there is another issue of carrying Northeast Development Commission into the whole process itself as a body dealing with this organization. These are major keys.
Okay, these are some of the major. These are some of the major issues that were discussed at the stakeholder forum. But let me just hold you there for a bit. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back to wrap this conversation up in a moment. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have with us our panelists right here in the Lagos studio as well as via Zoom from Maiduguri. But let me again go back to Maiduguri where we have Musa Gambo standing by. Musa, just before we went on break, you talked about all the things that, was discussed at the stakeholder forum. But just before you made that assertion, Michael here in the studio was talking about how the internally displaced persons, could feel aggrieved and begin their own form of radicalism or terrorism, if those who are have put them where they are being, sorted, reintegrated, retrained, and all of that and brought back into the society. What is the tendency of that happening quickly as we wind down?
Yes, thank you so much. I think I also raised that in my article that I wrote last 3 weeks ago, that unless we actually have these IDP camps well resettled back to their community and are safely living their lives, we will have difficulty reintegrating repentant Boko Haram into our communities. Because when you put together somebody who has perpetrated crime and then the victim in one place, while the perpetrator is enjoying his life, rehabilitated, being given maybe capital to start up again, while the victim is languishing in IDP camp, it's going to give a lot of headache to humanitarian actors as well as the government itself. So we need to, yes, the current agenda of the governor or resettling the victims from the IDP camps is a very good step to address that issue. But then, lastly, I think we need to understand why these guys are surrendering. Officially, these guys are surrendering due to the, overpowering of the bombardment of Nigerian army. But other sources are saying that these guys are the Shekau faction that actually came in, due to the killing of their leader, due to internal conflict. And then most of them are civilians, are children and women.
Okay. Well, let's hope they're surrendering for the right reasons, and hopefully they're doing that also justly and from the bottom of their hearts. But I have to say thank you for joining us today on the program and sharing your thoughts on this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys.
Of course, you're welcome. Michael, just in wrapping up as well, in 30 seconds, he talked about a lot of things that was discussed at the stakeholder meetings. Do you think that will be a panacea to this problem?
Well, some of them may be, if they are well followed. But I would like to say that for every action taken, there's the latent part and there's manifest part. This reintegration of this repentant Boko Haram back into the society, just as it has the manifest part of, trying to reduce the act of terrorism, it may also bring about the latent part of building other terrorists. Until the Nigerian society set up a law, until we have a standard policy that speaks tough against criminality and terrorism in this country, these ones will repent, but others won't. will come up tomorrow.
Well, let's hope others don't come up tomorrow. And again, I have to say thank you for joining us on the program, Michael Tumehin, criminologist as well as public affairs analyst, for sharing your thoughts on the program today. Well, let's switch our attention and quickly head over to Vancouver, Canada, where we have Olumiwa Igbalajobi joining us. He is committed to engaging a larger community via seminars, workshops, and webinars to ensure that they get, global opportunities. Olumiwa, it's a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Hi, good morning from Vancouver. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. So I rarely get that question, but thanks again for asking. So let's quickly, dive into all of this. A lot of opportunities out there for young people, globally, but for some reason, CV reviews, the ability to apply to all of these things seems to be a clog in the wheel of their success. How would you advise that people go about, such things?
Okay, from my perspective about scholarships, what is applicable outside is quite different from the Nigerian perspective, where you have to list a lot of things about your nationality, your gender, your local government of origin, and all things like that. So I always advise people, if you're looking for global opportunities, it's important to know what is applicable in the system you are actually applying to. So I've made several threads on Twitter. I started Scholarship Cafe last year because I felt this gap when people apply for scholarships. Like they tend to get the press because of rejection and because there are particular things that the scholarship body are looking for. So in terms of CV review, in terms of statement of purpose, there are so many resources out there which I'm also part of people that, put out information for free out there to assist young scientists and people that are just coming up. And because I understand, being African, being Nigerian, I'm from Ifala, you can say Nigeria, education is a luxury in most developing countries, especially Nigeria.
All right, so one of the things that we also, hear out there is that, the employability of the Nigerian graduate. What's your own perspective on that?
Well, I think it's about the system. From my own story, I left Nigeria 8 years ago. I was a master's student when I had a South Korean government and Chinese government scholarship, and I went to Korea. The system is quite different. There is this huge gap when it comes to the curriculum. The curriculum we have back in Nigeria is completely obsolete, and I think it's important to engage the policymakers and those are the aims of academia. Like, okay, we need to do things that are right. For instance, in my own way, to give back to the system, I applied to my alma mater university, Ikeda State University, to become a visiting lecturer, and I exclusively stated that I want this to be unpaid and a voluntary role. So I feel we need a lot to do in terms of the curriculum so that it's applicable to what is obtained outside the shore of Nigeria. Just a few days ago, I participated in a program like Fourth Industrial Revolution. Unfortunately, our system is still not at the 21st century when it comes to technology. So I think we need to do a lot in terms of a curriculum, in terms of a skill acquisition, and the stakeholders, the government, not only the government, the industry also have to be in place so that we understand that what we are producing in terms of our curriculum is applicable to the international community.
All right, so it's a good thing you made mention of technology, because as it is now, with what we're seeing, the future of work and all of that, AI, machine learning, a lot of data analysis, and a lot of job titles like this are coming up on a daily. They spring up actually on a daily. And the thing is, like you said, the curriculum doesn't accommodate any of this. So what would you be advising people who are seeing these kind of titles and they are interested, in practicing? But the curriculum, what do you expect? What would you advise that they do at the moment before the curriculum is changed?
Oh, well, for instance, YouTube, it's like a university on its own, and you can learn a lot on YouTube in terms of like, I mean, I as a scientist, I also go online to learn a lot of tools and techniques, and there are also a lot of startup out there, AcBio, a lot of organizations that are getting to set up free events so that you can learn all these tools online. In my recent obligation as a lecturer at the University of British Columbia, we had, because of COVID, we had online laboratory practical classes where you can, assess all those things. I think the notion that you have to be in the university to acquire skills must be corrected. In Germany, where I had my PhD, the focus more on technical skills. You may want to go to technical college, you don't have to go to the uni. So I feel we need to invest a lot in ourselves. I usually tell people, especially people that are looking for scholarship, like, you have to invest in yourself. You need to be intentional. Yeah, you want to blame the government, that the government is not doing enough, but again, you have to own it your story. Like, okay, you want to go online, check up those resources on YouTube and all the websites that offers free tools for you to learn. I'm an influencer into quite a lot of startups in Nigeria, which also offers this thing, and you can do it just at the comfort of your home.
All right. So, like you said, you would prefer to see that, or prefer to see a situation where certificates or qualifications and all of that are put aside. But like you said, again, the system is kind of different, from where you are or where you might have been opportune, to study, like Germany and all of the places you made mention of. With Nigeria, where, of course, if you are applying for a job, of course, they want to see your BSc, your BA, your HND, your OND, or any of those qualifications. What do you think can be done to change the minds of those who employ people on a daily to see that, skill perhaps precedes qualifications?
Yeah, I think we should address the basic problem. Apart from the societal problem, let's think about EDI, which is the bulk of selection in North America. In Nigeria, you still have to put your number of children, the local government of origin, the state of origin, the religion, your gender in your CV, which a lot of recruiters actually look out for, like if you're applying to public service. So we need to think about people in the regards of what they can offer, instead of like it has to be based on merit. So you want to think about the hands-on experience. I understand the certificate is very important to assess opportunities, but again, looking at the context of what we have, the availability of things in Nigeria, education is expensive. What about people that have the skills that have to learn on their own? So I feel the government and the stakeholders should engage each other to talk about removing those gaps, because the unemployment rate in Nigeria is a lot.
All right, I have to say thank you for joining us on the program today. Scholarship Cafe founder Olumuyiwa Igbala-Ajobi, thanks for joining us on the program and sharing your thoughts on this.
Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome. Well, that's where we are, and that's the program this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Matthias.